Should you eat more protein? Should you eat less protein? Well, that's exactly what we're going to tell you in today's podcast, is how much protein you need to eat to either build muscle or burn fats. We're going to give you tips and tricks on how you can structure more protein into your diet, how you should space out your protein so you can maximize the results and your time spent in the gym. Before we hop into today's podcast, if you guys have more questions about specific macros tailored to you, we have 2 free resources on our website. So we have a form that you can fill out where we'll do a custom macro calculation and tell you how many carbs, fat, protein that you need to be eating. And then we also have our free macro cheat sheet that you can download on our website. If you're watching on YouTube, I'll leave the link in the comments in the description below. Or if you're listening on a different platform, head over to fitgrindformula.com and you can check out those 2 free resources for more specific tailoring to you.
Thanks for tuning in. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to be talking about how much protein that you should actually be eating.
Yeah, this is a hot topic. I mean, there's lots of numbers get thrown out. There's lots of misinformation out there. We're going to talk exactly about how much protein you need to be eating, why you need to be eating protein, some good tips on protein, good protein sources. We're covering all things protein today.
Yeah. So let's start with the answer. How much protein you should be eating. For the average person, we recommend that you're getting 0.8 to 1 gram per body weight of protein.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a really good spot. And most people, I feel like people fall into 2 different categories. They're either going to hear us say that and they're like, wait a second, what? You need to eat that much protein? Or there's a lot of people that are like, hey, I'm already eating that much protein. Great. But there's so much more that goes into it. It's not just the protein amount. It's the protein, the quality of the protein, the timing of the protein, the consistency of the protein. But yes, generally that is kind of where you want to start if you're trying to make body composition changes, whether you're looking to lose fat or build muscle. Doesn't matter. We still need to keep our protein at that 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. And for most people, it's a good amount of protein. And like I said, we'll give you more structure throughout the podcast today on how you can accomplish that goal, give you some tips and tricks on how to reach that amount and why it's really important. I think that's kind of the next thing that we can dive into is, why do we want to eat that much protein? What is the benefit of doing that? Does it matter if I don't eat that much protein? Like, what is the actual benefit of eating that protein?
Yeah, so there's lots of benefits to eating enough protein. It's going to help you build muscle. It's going to help you with muscle recovery process and that soreness that you feel after a workout. Is going to help that the recovery process, like I said, but also it's going to help you feel full and satiated longer. So by balancing your meals out with a protein, a fat, and a carb, it's going to help balance out blood sugar levels. And making sure that we do this throughout the day, like I said, balancing out blood sugars is so important, because if we're waiting to eat all of our protein by the end of the day, first of all, it's going to be really hard to get all of that in at the end of the day. But throughout the rest of the day, you're going to feel these crashes and these dips in energy. Yeah,
that's really the main thing. And like we're talking about for those individuals that are working out, they're exercising, and they're breaking their body down. And that's really the whole gist behind protein is when we're going in and we're working out, we're not building muscle tissue. So if you go through a strength training workout, there was 0 muscle tissue built during that workout. What you're actually doing is you're breaking that tissue down, and you repair muscle tissue the 24 to 72 hours after a workout by having adequate amount of protein in your diet. And that protein is broken down, the amino acids are broken down, it helps your muscles recover. And that's the whole benefit of eating protein, is it's going to help you repair your muscle tissue, grow back stronger, and make sure that we're not just having this stare down effect of breaking your muscle tissue down and never repairing it back to 100%. So that's a huge thing. And like you said, it also helps with satiety and appetite suppression, where if you are trying to lose weight and you're trying to cut body fat, a lot of times when we eat fewer calories, we start to get hungry and our appetite starts to get stimulated. But by eating more protein and structuring each meal around a protein source, and we'll talk about that later too, it's going to help you be a little less hungry from meal to meal or snack to snack, versus if you just have a carb, if you have a handful of chips, like that's not gonna curb your cravings at all. Like you're just gonna want another 10 handfuls of chips, versus if you have like 1 serving of chips mixed with a protein source, you're gonna be a lot more full from that. Not to say that you should have chips or anything like that, but just for pure example, by default, it's going to help with satiety, and it's going to help you feel more full and just have it be easier to stick to your diet.
Yeah. So some things that you can do to add in more protein and good quality protein is going to be simple things like animal protein, so meats. A lot of times when we say meats, it can be so vague. So a lot of times people think, oh, that means I can have beef. While yes, that is a protein source, but you have to be selective when choosing your protein. So yes, beef, choose a leaner beef and you're going to get more protein, less fat. So comparatively, if you're choosing a 93% beef versus an 85% beef, you're going to get more protein from that 93% beef. And in that 85% beef, you're going to get a lot of fat.
Yeah.
Just to get enough protein.
Yeah.
So some leaner protein sources are going to be the lean ground beefs, lean ground turkeys, chicken, shrimp, fish. But again, you got to be careful with fish. So like a whitefish, tilapia, tuna, those are leaner, shrimp. And then when you're looking at like salmons and things like that, there's more fat associated with that, which these are good sources of fat, and our body needs those omega-3 fatty acids. But we also have to be cautious when choosing our protein sources because we want to make sure that we're getting enough protein and not overdoing it on the fat too.
Yeah, exactly. That's a big mistake that I think a lot of people make. And I've had clients that have made that mistake where, fat is very calorically dense. Not that fat is bad, carbs are not bad, protein's not bad. There's not one macronutrient that's bad. But the issue is specifically if you're trying to lose weight or cut body fat, if you're having a ton of fat in your diet, each gram of fat contains 9 calories. So it's very calorically dense compared to carbohydrates, and protein only contain 4 calories per gram. So it's just a lot less calorically dense. So if you're eating more fat, say you're, like you mentioned, if you're eating like 85-15 and you just have more fat in your diet or in that meat, it makes it harder to hit your calories. So the main thing there is with your calories. Like if you're eating a really fatty cut of meat, that's great, has protein, but you are going to have to pay attention to your fat. And that's exactly why I have that free resources on our website where we're going to structure your macros. Calories, they matter, yes, but you also want the right percentage of carbs, fat, protein specific to your goal. And a lot of times that's out of whack for people where people either completely avoid carbs or they completely avoid fat. We want to make sure that we're having the right proportion and right balance of each to support you in your goal, whether that's building muscle and gaining weight, whether that's maintaining your weight, or whether that's trying to build or maintain your muscle mass while losing body fat.
Yeah, so with all that being said, it's important to educate yourself so that you know where you're at as far as getting enough protein and knowing which protein sources are going to give you more protein and less fat. Now, like I said, it's not a bad thing to incorporate those higher fat meats in your diet because our body does need those fat sources, but just be cautious and be aware of that. So if you know that you're eating salmon for dinner, maybe for lunch you have a leaner protein source and a less fat source for lunch, and so that you can incorporate more of that fat in dinner.
Yeah, balance it all out. And
yeah,
depending on your goal, even if you're trying to lose body fat, especially, talking about for men here and even women too, if we get too low with fat, there's also certain things that start to happen too. Our hormones start to drop. We just don't feel good energy. So we need fat in our diet, but it's just the right proportion of fat. And like you mentioned, there's certain protein sources that have fat in them. Fattier cuts of meat. Eggs are a good example that eggs are a great protein source, but each egg is going to have 5 to 6 grams of fat depending on the size of it. So you're basically getting like a 1-to-1 ratio of fat to protein. So if you have 5 eggs, say they have 5 grams of fat each, yeah, you're going to get like 25 to 30 grams of protein, but you're also going to get 25 to 30 grams of fat. So that's where egg whites come into play, and just being cognizant of that. And that's where tracking also helps too as well. We talked about this in our last podcast last week where I don't think you should track for the rest of your life. But if you have goals that you're trying to achieve, it's good and it's helpful to track your food, see where you're at, because say you're hitting your protein, but you're like hitting 150 grams of fat. That's a lot of excess calories that no matter if your goal is to build muscle or lose fat, like that's not going to help you reach your goal. So, and you're only going to know that by tracking. So it's a huge thing that, like I said, don't have to track for the rest of your life, but tracking does help, because otherwise you're just spinning your wheels if you're not making progress. You have to know exactly what you're eating, create structure around that so that you can replicate it and know that what you're doing is going to get you to your goal.
Yeah, and I think that's a good segue into the next topic that I wanted to discuss is how do you know, how much protein you should be eating, and do you start by eating that right away, or do you need to inch your way into getting to that amount?
Yeah.
So what I always tell people is, yes, we would ideally like you to be at that 0.8 to 1 gram per body weight, but if you track and you're like, way below that, then it might be like a really big shock or a big jump to go from, let's say, 80 to 160. So I always tell people to just slowly start incorporating it, because again, this is a lifestyle, and if we go too hard too fast, it may be really overwhelming for people. So just simply adding a protein to every meal and slowly increasing that as you go on.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Like, say you're eating 50 grams of protein right now, and you're telling me, Jordan, I have to eat 200 grams of protein now. I have to add 150 grams of protein. That's a lot of extra protein. So
yeah,
just try to get, if you're not hitting 0.8 to 1 gram, just try to get to 0.8. For me, I'm 200 pounds. That looks like, for me, that's 140 grams of protein a day. Now, typically on a daily basis, I eat around 200. I eat around my body weight in protein. But that's something that I've done for a lot of years, and I've created structure around that. And sometimes I hit a little bit lower than that, but most times I'm at that 200.
You can feel that.
Yeah,
when you hit lower.
And I do feel it. Yeah, that's the recovery aspect is what I feel, or the lack thereof, the lack of recovery, where my muscles just tend to be a little bit more sore from workouts, or that soreness lasts an extra day, which in the grand scheme of things, it does add up. If you're trying to really come in and work hard and you're consistently overloading your muscles from week to week, and you're trying to build muscle, you're trying to reach your fitness goals, maybe you have certain performance goals that you're trying to achieve, and you're working really hard, if your muscles just kind of break down, and you're just constantly in this state of soreness, that's kind of par for the course. But if you're not recovering enough because of lack of protein, then it just makes the consistency piece a lot harder. It makes it harder to come in and have good workouts. Yeah, maybe you got the workout in, but maybe it wasn't 100% because your body was just so destroyed and not recovered. And there's a whole laundry list of other things that we can talk about with recovery, but the biggest thing you can do today to help yourself recover is get enough protein in your diets consistently, not just one day, not just 2 days of the week. Try and get it all 7 days of the week. Even if you're not working out on that day, you still need to hit your protein, because like I said, if you worked out the day before and say the next day is a rest day, your muscles are recovering that day. So just keep your protein consistent, and try to shoot for that 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight.
And a lot of times people ask us, okay, but I don't have time to prep my food, or I'm always on the go. How can I get enough protein in? So my biggest suggestion and number one request for clients is to tell them to prep all of your meat in bulk. So it doesn't have to always be chicken. It doesn't always have to be beef. Whatever it is, rotate through different meats. Maybe you have a couple meats ready, handy, but cook all of your meat in bulk so that you have that easy access to grab out of the fridge, reheat it, and you can simply heat up a sweet potato, add some butter on top of it, and you have yourself a healthy, balanced meal. Throw some vegetables in the microwave. It's really that simple.
There you go.
To make sure that you have all of your meats prepped for the week. And as far as like on the go foods, like Jordan said before, we do have that macro sheet that helps you understand what a protein is and gives you some ideas as what that would look like. But some on the go things are going to be easy, like tuna packs. Those are things that we do a lot of. You have to be careful because there's a lot of mercury in those. So don't overdo the tuna packs, but beef sticks, protein bars, protein powders, things that are easy on the go. Making egg whites and putting them in little cups and like little muffin cups and heating those up for the week so that you can grab those out of the fridge. Cottage cheese, Greek yogurts, all of those things are easy. So there shouldn't be the excuse that I don't have time to prep my food. We all have the same time in the day to at least spend an hour in the kitchen cooking up some beef and grabbing some easy on the go things to make sure that we're getting enough protein.
Yeah. And that's, if you can create structure around like, okay, this week I'm going to cook up all my meat, like you mentioned, for lunches. I'm going to have chicken every day at lunch. And try to get your lunch done. Breakfast, usually for most people, you're not going to want to prep eggs. You can just do that real quick in the morning. And then even if you want to prep your dinners too, that can help, especially like for us, we're busy. Usually I'm finishing up work and we got sports games, and like usually dinner is like on the fly. It's on the go. Last night we actually got to sit down and eat dinner, which was like, wow, this is weird. This never happens. But most of the time it's on the fly. So that would also be another thing you do, is prep your meat for dinners. And if you can create that structure around your main meals and then mix in your on-the-go protein sources, like you mentioned, like protein powders, protein bars, tuna packets, those things, that's how you're going to get your protein. And I think what we're trying to say here is that don't just eat all your protein in 2 meals throughout the day. Try to space it out, and each meal and each snack should have a protein source. So, most of our clients, we give a 3 meal, 2 snack approach, or 3 meal and 3 snack approach. So say that you're eating 3 meals and 2 snacks and you're trying to get 200 grams of protein a day. Each meal and each snack has to have 40 grams of protein if you're eating 5 times throughout the day. It just allows you to space things out a little bit better. Digestion's going to be a little bit better. And it's also going to be a lot easier to hit your protein, and you're going to be more consistent if you can space it out. So as much as you can, try to avoid these massive meals. If you're like, I'm only going to eat 3 times a day, then, I'm not going to change your mind. But I will say that you just have to adjust your protein amount in that meal. Otherwise, you're not going to consistently hit your protein amounts. And it will negatively impact your recovery and your progress with your workouts.
Yeah, and if you want to eat 3 large meals, then that's totally fine. Getting the snacks in are the things where you can add in a protein shake, you can add in a protein bar. If you're not super hungry throughout the rest of the day, just bulk up your carbs and fats with your main meals, and then just adding those like little snacks in that are going to help you reach those protein goals will go a long ways. And I think the biggest thing here is that if you don't plan ahead, you're basically setting yourself up for failure. Mm-hmm. So always plan ahead. Another thing that I tell my clients too is to plug in your food, like on MyFitnessPal, or we have a Life-Base app that we use here. Whatever it is, plug it in and set your day up so that you know exactly what you're going to be eating, and that you don't get to lunch and say, oh my gosh, I don't know what to eat. I'm so hungry. I'm just going to stop at McDonald's or Subway or whatever it is. But if you have stuff ready in the fridge, you can just grab some protein out of the fridge, heat up a sweet potato. Like I said, make it simple, make it easy, make it something that you can do every day, and you'll set yourself up for success.
Yeah. For the most part, like, we eat the same things every day. And for us, that works. And you might not be somebody that can do that, but if you can create some structure and have some sort of like, okay, this week I'm gonna eat this at lunch, and then maybe rotate it.
Yeah.
But if you have some sort of structure, that helps. We have breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then like throughout the morning as I'm training, a lot of times I'll do a protein shake and a piece of fruit. That's kind of my mid-morning snack. That's just really quick, easy, especially when I'm like in training sessions, I can't sit down and have a meal. And then later on in the afternoon, I also do another protein shake, sometimes another piece of fruit after a workout. So just use protein powders, and that's why we have our Fit Grind Whey Protein is it's an extension of your diet to help you hit your protein goals. It's not a magic pill. It's not this magic supplement's going to put on 10 pounds of muscle in 4 weeks type of thing. It's just an extension of your diet. It's filling in the gaps. It's supplementing your diet to help you reach your protein goals. That's really how we use our whey protein, is an extension of our diet to get us to our protein goals.
Yeah, so the main takeaway today is to make sure that you're balancing your protein out throughout the whole day, so you're not eating it all in one sitting, because digestively that just doesn't work. And realistically, it would be really, really hard to get in all that protein at once. And again, like I mentioned, throughout the day, you're going to have these divots, ups and downs of blood sugar crashes. So spacing out your protein, getting in good quality protein sources, and educating yourself with what a protein is. Yeah.
There's lots of different types of protein. It doesn't have to be some of the things that we've mentioned today. Maybe there's certain things that you like, and I think there's a lot to be said about that. You have to find something that you generally enjoy. Like when we talk about diets, we're talking about the food that you consume. It's not this diet that only lasts for 8 weeks and it's this crash diet, and as soon as you're done with 8 weeks, you're going to go back to the way that you were eating. I think there's a lot to be said about creating some sort of enjoyment out of the food that you're eating, whether that is finding recipes that you like, but just making it a healthier way, or opting for leaner cuts of meat, like just finding some sort of food that you generally like, because you're going to be able to stick with that so much longer and you're going to enjoy your food. Otherwise, if you hate every meal that you eat, I mean, yeah, that might work for the short term, but that's not a long-term solution. And that's not a real sustainable way to either build muscle or lose weight. Like, you have to somewhat enjoy the foods that you're eating. So find foods that you like, and you're going to be so much happier and enjoy the process by doing so.
Yeah. And one more thing too, when Jordan and I prep our meat for the week, we like to spice up our meals by adding in different condiments. Now, when we choose condiments, we're not choosing heavy loaded sugar condiments or heavy loaded calorie source condiments.
Ranch.
Yeah, we're choosing things like salsa, mustard, sugar-free or organic ketchup, spicy mustard, a sugar-free barbecue sauce. So instead of it just always being like basic chicken, you change up the seasoning, some coconut amino acids, Bragg's amino acids. You change up the taste. You bring in different vegetables like broccoli, green beans, zucchini. Bring in some other colors, carrots, beets, things like that. You're spicing up your meal just by adding in a condiment, a different vegetable, and then a different carb source, such as we got sweet potatoes, we got white potatoes, we got little baby potatoes, we got rice, there's so many different options out there. And so you don't have to eat the basic chicken, broccoli, rice. That doesn't have to be what you eat every day. And not to mention your body wants the variety. Your body wants to eat the rainbow.
Yeah.
And I just think that's a really good way to spice up your meals too, is adding in different condiments and rotating through vegetables and fruits. So, always adding in different types of fruits, bringing in different nuts, things like that.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said about variety in your diet and your program, and yeah, just keeping things interesting, just avoiding that burnout. That's the whole thing with fitness, is we want to carry this out for our entire lifespan, and you have to enjoy it. You have to somewhat enjoy the process and enjoy your workouts, enjoy your diet. Otherwise, you are never going to stick with it. Or if you stick with it because you're like, I'm so hard and I'm so disciplined, it doesn't bring you fulfillment. Like if it's not enjoyable, yeah, you might do it, but it's like it doesn't make you happy. So use little tips like that. Alyssa's awesome about that. She's a nutrition guru with just adding in some variety, adding different condiments, spices, and just always looking for ways to mix it up, which I love that because it just keeps us both really consistent with our diet.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of, whatever you got in the fridge, just throw it all together and
I'm all about that.
create a beautiful color arrangement, and it ends up tasting good. But I think the biggest key here too is to find something that works for you, find something that you enjoy doing too. So like try different recipes. What works for Jordan and I too is that we keep everything super simple: breakfast, lunch, snacks. And then with dinner, we sometimes will spice that up. Sometimes we'll go out. Sometimes and when I we go out, it's usually the same boring places like Chipotle or Qdoba, whatever. And we like to bring in dessert, and those things aren't off limits for us, as long as we know that we're following that 80-20% rule and knowing that we're still choosing meals when we go out to dinner that have protein. Or if we want to go out for ice cream, we make sure we drink a protein shake before we eat the ice cream, because that protein is going to help us feel satiated and not want to have seconds.
Oh, listen, I could eat about 4 things of ice cream.
Yeah.
If I really wanted to. But yeah, that's a huge hack that you just mentioned there. Like if you're going out to dinner and you don't want to overeat, or you're going out for dessert and you don't want to overeat, drink a protein shake before, and I promise you that you are drastically going to eat less. You're going to be more satiated. You're not going to reach for as much of that. You're not going to overindulge. That's a huge hack that you just mentioned there. It's a good tip.
Yeah, that's a good one. And If you're a pasta eater, the only pasta that we make in our house is that Bonza pasta. So it's like a chickpea pasta. So we're constantly finding foods that we enjoy and making sure that we're adding in the protein and then adding in the vegetables. So there's tons of different hacks out there. Educate yourself, learn different recipes, and download the free macro cheat sheet. And that will give you a good starting point as to not like getting to know what a protein, fat, and carb is.
Yeah, and if you're looking for more structure with your macros, like I said, head over to our website, fitgrindformula.com. There's a free macro calculation on there. You fill out that form, and we will personally calculate your macros and give you a good starting point, how many carbs, fat, protein that you need to be eating to reach your specific goal. So
yeah, and if you're looking for a good quality protein source, be sure to check out our whey protein at fitgrindformula.com.
That's right. So thanks for tuning in to the podcast today. I hope it helped you understand how much protein you need to be eating and how to structure that into your diet to help you reach your goals. So thanks for tuning in, guys, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.